Hello, home mechanics. Well, my Jeep Wrangler JK's now got 55,000 miles on it. The Jeep dealer tells me it's time for brakes. When I bought my Jeep, the dealer coerced me into buying a service contract. So every time I take it up there to get the oil changed, they give it a thorough checkout, end to end, trying to sell me additional services. Lately they keep nagging me and nagging me and nagging me that the brakes are worn, especially the rear. And I find that curious. I've been working on cars all my life, and every vehicle I've ever worked on, even the old ones that had four-wheel drum, the front brakes always do most of the work, so they wear faster. But this vehicle, the dealer says it wears faster on the rear. I did a brake check some time ago. He's right, they do. Why that would be true is beyond me, unless the front brakes aren't doing their job. But the thing stops pretty good, never had any trouble in that regard. So, these brake pads aren't going to jump on there themselves. So let's break out the tools and get to it. Get it done. Okay, so the first thing we need to do this morning is get the Jeep up on jacks. And we want to make sure we do that safely, because the stupidest thing that can happen to you, have your vehicle fall off the jacks and hurt and kill you. If it doesn't kill you, at least you feel stupid, and it might damage part of the Jeep, especially the rotors or something, because they're going to hit the ground first. So let's see what we got. The back of the Jeep is easy. I just stick this underneath the differential with a block of wood to protect the differential, and no worries at all. But the front of the Jeep, if you'll notice, the differential is not in the center of the vehicle. It's offset. It has to be. All four-wheel drive front axles is offset like this, because the center of the vehicle is occupied by the engine, transmission, drive shaft. So the front drive shaft can't be in the center, can't occupy the same space as the engine. So it's offset. Well, the problem is you put this jack underneath the differential and jack it up, the only thing that's going to happen is the tire on that side is going to come up. Oh, if you jack it up about 40 inches, the other tire will probably eventually come off the ground, but I don't want to jack it up 40 inches. So what I learned years ago when I had my very first CJ, I built me this block, and all it is, just some 2x6s. And the axle goes here, differential goes here, and right there on that line, that's where the center of the jack pad goes. All right, let me show it to you. Let's get it under there. I even use this wood block on my diesel Super Duty truck. Let's take a check. It's not exactly. There we go. The front end on that diesel pickup is heavy as hell. And this block didn't have any trouble at all lifting that heavy ass diesel motor. Looks like it's still off a little bit, but that's okay. Take a look. Alright. Now, examine it. Make sure it's right where you want it. Okay, there. Now, shake your Jeep. Okay. That's all we need for that part. Okay, now, again, shake the vehicle. Now I trust that jack. The only thing, once you shake the vehicle and you confirm that it's on there good and there's no way for the vehicle to fall off the jack, the only worry you have is if the hydraulic ram should pop a leak, blow the seal, and all it's going to do, the thing's just going to lower, and it's only going to lower to as close to the ground as it can get. With my big wooden block, it won't go that far, so we're safe. Okay, let's yank some tires off. Didn't want to let go of the socket, lug nut. These must be metric 2. Guys, shops that do brake, they sure like to sell rotors. I don't see anything wrong with that. Let's see the other side. Yeah, it feels okay. Okay, so what we got a bolt here and a bolt there, both 13 millimeter. So all we got to do is crack these loose. Now, this thing has a backup nut right here, so you want to hold that with a wrench. It's a short little bolt. Pull it out. Okay. Hold it with a wrench again. Here it goes. Nothing flat, it's finger loose. Okay, now what we gotta do now is pry the thing off. And what you want to be most concerned about is this rubber hose. That hose holds all your hydraulic pressure. You kink it. Don't drop this thing on there. You'll damage it. Set it up here. Set it up there. This wire is your anti-lock brakes sensor, so don't worry about that. Don't mess with it. All right, so one of the things we're going to do we're going to pull these bolts out. And again, it's got a rubber boot, so if you turn it and pull, it pops right out. And that way you don't tear it and damage it. So turn, pull, take a look at it. Now I'm impressed that there's still grease on here after 6 years. So same thing, turn and pull and the rubber boot comes off. And I'll show you why we're going to do that here in a minute. I'll take it off now. Find yourself a rag, it's half-assed clean. And go ahead and wipe off this bolt. And we're going to put some fresh they got some flat sides on them, but it doesn't look like it's a locator flat side. Oh, I know what that's for. 1 for grease, and 2 so the thing doesn't seize inside the bore. Pretty smart, Chrysler. So I like to use never seize. Grease that thing up. Nothing ever seized because it had too much grease on it. Put it in there, and then same thing, turn it as you push, pops right in there, just like God intended. Okay, got the other one. Now we'll grease it up. Try not to make too big a mess, but it's okay. That in there, turn and push, pops in there. Good deal. Now, we have two pads. I already looked at this rotor. It's okay, no cracks, very smooth. Not perfect, but very smooth. I think most brake guys, they like replacing those things. Now, you want to check to see if the shoes are the same. Are they? No, they're not. This one has a metal thing. It's supposed to start making noise when your shoe gets real low. If you can see it right there. See it goes across the metal backing. It extends past the metal backing over the lining. So if you wore the lining down that far, this thing will start squealing. It probably also start digging into your rotor. So you'd have to buy yourself a rotor. And the way you can tell which one's inside and which one's outside, the round. That's where your caliper piston was. So we take a look here, and we got 2 brand new ones. We got our deal there, so we know that's on the inside. And when you put them in, just make note of the arc, and the arc's gonna match this. So don't try to put it in like that. That won't happen. All right. Now, before we go any farther, I want to grease the back side. Actually, I got something better to do. Right here, these little removable clips can be replaced if necessary. Oh, shoot. There it is. Okay. Okay. Just get the dust off them. Then I take my little baby wire brush. These are pretty clean though. Just dusty and dirty. An older, like an 07, you'd probably be replacing these things. Okay. Now just hit them again to knock off anything I made loose. And again, you're going to want to grease. Put a little grease there, put a little grease here, a little grease there. Don't get any on the rotor. Okay, and get a little grease up there, because this stuff has to move. It has to slide. Okay, looks like I did get a little bit of grease on the rotor. That's alright, we'll fix that. We'll roll that around here. at. There we go. Okay, now let's put our new, no, gotta grease the back of our shoes. Now we're gonna grease this. Guess it would be nice if we don't put any dirt in there. Not that I think it'll hurt anything. Stuff says it's good to 400 degrees. I don't know how hot these things get. I watched a NASCAR race one time with the NASCAR pickups, and it was a nighttime race, short track. And man, those guys, they were on the brakes more than they were the gas. They only had to do about a lap or two before everybody's front brake calipers, rotors, you could see those sons of bitches, they were glowing red. Okay, so there's that one. Comes in here, get the greasy fingerprint off of there. Put it in our, there we go, got that one. Okay. Use what's left of these. I like to buy one of these for every pad or every wheel. I did the other side with this. No tear there. Okay. So I got about a wheel and a half package there, and rub that in there good. This keeps these things from squealing, and they'll rattle, and sometimes. Okay, so put them like this, follow the arc, get it in there. You kind of got to do a kind of a weird little shimmy there. There you go. Got it in there. What did I do? We got to compress this piston. Now, this piston is always hollow. It's pretty deep, and it's too deep. I use a C-clamp, but it's too deep, so I use a 7/8 socket. Just pop it in there and then gently turn this thing over. Don't stress that hose. A little space there. There we go. Don't need much. Just need to catch my clamp on the corner. Eventually you're going to want to replace these calipers. But they're reusable for... See? There's the brake fluid. See, as I compress those caliper pistons, see? Now it's right up to the brim. All done. Let's go ahead and, yeah, that'll dissipate. Alright. So remember, I put these little green packages of brake high temperature lubricant on the back of the pads, and I had noticed here on the package it says effective up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you remember, I said I wonder if I could just use Never Seas on there. Well, this is usually the way I do it. I read things afterwards. So I read here, and it says. And this is a CarQuest non-seize lubricant. Prevents seizing, galling, and corrosion of metal parts in temperatures of 35 degrees below zero to 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, I could use this on the back of brake pads. It's 4 times more effective than this. And I don't have to squeeze it out of this package. Boy, they don't give you much more than a... Not much, let's say that. Alright, let's crank this thing. Okay, so the road test went great. The brakes worked perfectly. I made 3 or 4 or 5 emergency stops. Everything worked okay. I even tested the anti-lock brakes. You know how you do that? Well, you find something loose. Dirt, gravel, grass, and you have to be doing more than 25 miles an hour and slam on your brakes. And when you do, you'll notice the pedal will go about halfway to the floor. It's the first time it ever happens to you. It kind of scares you, but that's when the anti-lock brakes takes over. What happens, you know, is when you lock up your brakes, you lock up the brakes, the tires can't get traction. And what happens, they burn a little bit of rubber on the bottom, and so now you're at the vehicle's actually sliding on a film of liquid rubber. And so what happens with the anti-lock brakes, well, as you know, so to stop better, what you do, you pump your brakes. Well, that's exactly what anti-lock brakes do. But what they do, anti-lock brakes, the computer pumps the brakes 100 times a second, way more than you can ever do it. So once that kicks in, all you gotta do is just keep your foot on the pedal, even though it sinks. Don't let off. Just let the computer do its work. It'll stop way faster than you're ever able to. I've often wondered, with the advent of anti-lock brakes now, I imagine a lot of accident scenes out on the highway. There's probably no skid marks because anti-lock brakes they don't leave any skid marks. The cops used to use that a lot. They'd measure the length of the skid mark and they could tell exactly how fast you were going and who was at fault a lot of times. But with anti-locks, I guess that tool is probably not available to them any longer. Well, job done. We'll mark it off the list. See you next time, Jeepers.